Hey, it's working. Hey, how you guys doing? This is producer from Brothers Comics. Welcome to the Marvel Hacks Reassembled, y'all. It's been a very, very long time. It's me and Brother Beavis. Brother Beavis, we haven't recorded essentially since X-Men 97. Does
Yeah,
that seem
and
possible?
and apparently we don't do 3-2-1s anymore.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. It's been a minute, man. You
Yeah, I
gotta
was if
give
you
me
were gonna
some time.
ask me what I've been up to since last time, I was gonna say you need to remind me when the last time this was because I
Yeah,
really
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, it was X-Men 97.
Yeah, I do
So
remember we did like jizz ourselves over episode 5 or whichever the one the one, spoiler
yes.
alert. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly. Well, the funny thing is X Men '97 is probably closer to part two is closer to coming out since the last time we recorded. That ought to tell you something.
yeah.
Yeah. So so let's just jump into it. We're not that kind of people. So the big question is like, where the hell y'all been? Well, without breaking FERPA or HIPAA, um, it's just life, basically. There's just a whole lot of things that were going on. But there is a nerd reason for this too, and I want you to see if you agree with me. The podcast in and of itself, like the group, the people that were all involved with it from the beginning, with Hutch and Sandman and Female Perspective, you like all of that, whatever. That was a thing. And then we had like some personal tragedies or whatever happened on the podcast. That was a thing and caused a pause there, whatever, when Female Perspective passed away. But I would also say, like, there came a conclusion, or not a conclusion, but a dropping off of the cliff essentially after Endgame. Whereas the comic nerd, this kind of community or whatever, kind of reached an apex. And then it was just like kind of stringing itself along. And that's kind of where the podcast had kind of been. We were filling in the gaps where we could here and there. But do you think that that was like, well, we reached this kind of high point of podcasting and nerd culture at Endgame, and then things just kind of fell off locally and globally?
Yeah, I think for sure like I don't know that we ever put that label on it, but like we would have had a lot of like it was okay like discussions
Right.
or just like whatever but even like the comics where we had gotten so hyped over the Krakoa region and or the Krakoa era and then that sort of petered out. So yeah, like there was I think the comics actually picked up after the X-Men in particular, like after the MCU kind of tailed off in terms of like what was really coming out that was worth seeing.
Mm.
Um, as that kind of tailed off, I think the comics and then, like you said, X-Men '97, some of that picked up, but we definitely in a lull for sure.
Yeah. It just felt like, and again, like if you've been with us any amount of time or whatever, this would essentially be year 10 that we've been doing this. And, as the producer of this particular podcast or whatever, I've seen so many podcasts come and go, and a lot of them go permanently, some, kind of spotty scheduled or whatever. And it's just, I think, like, man, I'm telling you, after Endgame, and Endgame is also right before COVID as well, which also kind of took a big hit out of a lot of things, obviously. And I just, it was just one of those things. So I think we had kind of kept it together for a bit, but man, are we gonna review another freaking mid Disney Plus show? Oh well, we're gonna go to the movies and go see another, average movie and then sit here and talk about it. Like I just think a lot of that kind of took the sail out of us and our enthusiasm for doing some of this, and it just it all kind of piled together, and it was
Hmm.
like, well, X-Men '97 was kind of a peak, and now I mean, because I have a shit ton of podcasts that we've thought about doing loaded. It's just that we never really got around to doing it. Like I have a bunch of them, from cartoons and serials to Daredevil
Hmm.
review, Falcon. Like I was just going through like all of my PowerPoints, and I was like, oh yeah, we were going to do that too, and then it just didn't happen. So but yeah, but we will kind of catch ourselves back up here and move ourselves a little bit forward. We always fall back on X Men, because this is really like kind of home. when we're thinking about that. So if you saw the title side, we're going to do Legion Quest, and we had been going through the X-Men books and X-Men events, in a previous version of this podcast. And for some reason, we had started Legion Quest once many, many moons ago, and we got through part one, and then there was a lull and it stopped. Any chance you remember why we stopped?
No, I think I remembered that we actually had done it, but not why we stopped.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
we were queuing up for Age of Apocalypse for some reason. I think.
Yes. And
Um,
that's where we're headed here too.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's really a big kind of anniversary of, we're gonna tell this story as we get through it about, me jumping on the comics again at this particular time once you got me back cooked on
My
the crack
bad.
pipe.
My
Yep.
bad.
And then I know, right? And but it actually literally starts with this story leading right into that. So yeah, that's really where we've been. It ain't been personal, y'all. We just, we had shit to do. You know.
But I mean, realistically, though, like the main point of this podcast was us keeping in touch, and the fact that there's
Mhm.
people that would watch sit through it is a
Yeah,
bonus.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
thanks for being here too. Uh,
yes, exactly.
but
Right. Yeah, we talk about that too, online and off. Is like, the Brothers Comics brand or whatever hit its peak at a certain point too. And it's, it's not, we're not monetizing this or anything like that, but we also, hey, if I wanted to go, like, just got my press approval for Dragon Con today, like, and my daughter will wind up going with me, like, hey, if I want to get press for that, I can get it for it. If Brother Beavis wanted to go to Baltimore Comic Con or whatever, he could use, the gravitas of Brothers Comics probably to get himself in there for free, to be able to do that. Like that's kind of where it is right now. And, when you think about it over these 10 years, man, I've interviewed freaking Oscar winners. I've interviewed movie stars. We've done a lot, man, like in 10 years. And just like after a while, it's just like, you know what? Trying to discover some new territory here a little bit can be difficult, but yes, it's mostly for us to really just kind of hang out and talk. And as for the course of this summer, we'll probably bring the whole gang back together here for some of this stuff. All right. Sorry. So how do we wind up at Legion Quest, Brother Beavis? We're gonna have to use your brain here because there are events that are going to happen that are going to get us to that particular point. And okay, and let me pause here before we get to this. If you are new to this, like you just kind of stumbled onto us, one of the things that we do is we look back at things from our youth in an homage, but also take the piss out of it because we are very much of the mindset of like, oh yeah, back in my day everything was cool. No, it really wasn't. It was cool then, but when you look at it with adult tax paying eyes, as I like to call it, hey man, sometimes that shit wasn't that good. So yeah, you're in for it tonight. So all right, do you remember some of this? We got like two really different eras of X-Men here. One saga or one, kind of crossover event, and the death of Destiny, which is going to play a huge role in the road to Legion Quest. What do you remember?
yeah, so the is it 255?
Yeah.
That was like the post Siege Perilous era, I think, where they hadn't quite put the team back together. So there were kind of some also rans on the team like Banshee, you see Banshee and Forge here, and
Mm.
over these series like those like if you put that roster like if you rank a roster like awful, but it can be some of the best storytelling. So I kind of like eras like that, and I like the like the Outback X-Men of like when really Storm
Mm.
was leading the Dazzler and Havoc. Like there's the off-brand teams I think are some of the better storytelling. So that's definitely this. I remember this episode or the issue. I remember like the scene where Destiny gets killed. I know that the Freedom Force rejects were in there. I think one of them might die too. They popped up. I don't know where they even started, but that was like the World War II era heroes that were living in obscurity, and then they were like lightweight villains, but they got recruited into Destiny's team or
Mm.
Steve's team. But it was like this dude Tower. This guy was like the Wizard and the Crimson Commando or something like that. So
Yeah.
they were in it. Freedom Force was there. The Marauders, and it was another attack on Muir Island while the X Men weren't around. So I do remember like Destiny like is aware that she's going to die as a result. So you, if I remember right, you get at least one of those panels where she's like says something in an ominous way where you're like, oh, that bitch is dead. You know that you
Yeah, there's,
see it
there's
coming.
really yeah. Well, there's really a like, all right, David, just go ahead and kill me panel here coming
Yeah,
up,
yeah.
and I think I have it. So yeah, and
and
then
and then on the other side, that's sort of where all then everything comes back because now the X-Men have gone through various iterations. The teams are back together. It culminates on Muir Island, and then right after that, we get the blue and gold split that we used to be really hyped about, but then had a hard time finding something good about it when we went back and looked at it.
talk about taking the piss out of something. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So there, and this is we use this term, and again, if you're new here, you're going to hear wrestling terms or insider wrestling terms. This is what we call long-term booking, folks.
Yeah.
Not what Tony Khan does. This is long-term booking because you're going from 255 to 2. Was that 280? What's that? 3 years worth of comic books almost, and they're tying the story together. So, the star of our show tonight is going to be David Haller, aka Legion, and we'll talk a little bit about him and his parentage and all that as we move forward or whatever. But in one of these books, he makes this kill or he kills Destiny, and then it's going to come back over time when we get towards X Factor 109, which we'll kind of briefly talk about a little bit too. But it also culminates in this big battle on Muir Island, where the Shadow King is back, and actually a decent Shadow King story for once. Shadow King comes back, he takes over a lot of the X-Men, and he takes over David Haller as well. And in the defeat of the Shadow King, that's when Xavier loses use of his legs again. David's mind fractures again, and he winds up in a coma, which doesn't resolve itself until we get to that X Factor book. Am I missing anything in that particular bit?
No, but I mean, speaking of missing, sadly, there's no Mizhnari in this Shadow King story.
No, yeah, it is fake Jordan jersey on. But anyway, all right, let's get to it. So yeah, so here's our brief recap. Legion Quest officially starts in X-Men Uncanny X-Men 320, but the first seeds of this are going to get planted in this book in X Factor 109, where David's mind, essentially after he's been in this coma all this time, he has healed himself and all of his power. He's got multiple personality disorder, but then every different personality has its own set of powers. So
Yeah. If you read the Wikipedia on page on Legion, like you would think there's book after book about him because he's got like a complicated story. But I think he's got like three primary personalities. But like you really only have to go back and read like a couple New Mutants books. Not that I would recommend that anyone read New Mutants books.
yeah,
And like every New
or
Mutant,
watch.
like you like on the payday scale, like New Mutant books is the Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm telling you. But
Yeah.
like no, there was some terrorist killed some kid that then Legion absorbed their mind. So he's got like pyrokinetic, telekinetic, and telepathic powers in his three.
Mhm.
It's he's complicated.
Yeah.
But are we going to talk about like Xavier being a creeper with Gabrielle Haller? Are
Oh,
we going to hit on
oh,
that?
oh, 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 yeah, what? Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, again, we're gonna take this out.
All
It's
right.
coming. Don't worry.
Okay.
I won't let you down on this one. So yes, David is Xavier and Gabriella Holler's love child. His mutant powers again completely out of whack. He kills Destiny, but then again he goes into this coma after the Muir Island saga. But then when he awakes out of that coma, he is fully healed, his mind, all of his powers together. And now, because he killed Destiny, Mystique has been on this revenge mission, to avenge her boo thing, which we didn't know back then. It was I was reading these books over again. It's kind of there, but
Yeah.
it definitely isn't as overt as it is now. Like
No, it's
or
more
where it
like
was.
mentor or it's more like mentor or
Hmm.
my cool aunt that like,
Yeah,
yeah, that sort of thing.
yeah, no, not no more. It's definitely not that. And so, basically, once he wakes up, from there, his mom tries to comfort him in X Factor, and it's just like, hey, I'm going to make things better. Like that's what it is. Now that my mind is right, I'm going to, he's got daddy issues because Xavier is like not exactly the best father or lover or husband
Or
or
team
leader
leader, teacher.
or yes. I mean, there's really a lot of things going on with Xavier here. But in David's re-put together mind, his thought is, if I can make things all right, then Daddy will love me, and that's really where it's the set off for Legion Quest.
When
Is
has
that,
that ever gone wrong?
yeah, and no, it's perfectly fine. Nothing could
This is
even
this
ever
is
go
gonna
wrong
be
in
this
this.
is gonna go great.
Yeah, sure. All right, so let's take our first pause. This will be for you
Ah,
two. This will be for you too. Okay, so in that time frame that we were talking about, in this kind of this weird window of time where we're in a close to a post to end game thing, Fox still has the rights to the X-Men. There is a Legion television show that was on FX, or maybe it was FXX. I'm not really sure, from 2017 to 2019. So if you're on YouTube, you are really seeing the only reason that I might have ever even considered watching this show, and I still didn't watch it. I'm pretty sure you did. So what can you tell us about the Legion show on FX?
it's a phenomenal show. Highest possible recommendation.
What?
Yeah. No, I
Seriously?
watched. I when it first came out, I watched it. I loved like the first season. I kind of lost track of it, but I've
Mm,
gone back to watch it again. It's phenomenal. It's the design of it is amazing. It's only like loosely coupled to the X-Men.
mm,
The acting in it throughout is amazing. As you said, Aubrey Plaza's in it.
mm.
It's highest possible recommendation.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And
maybe that's
there no sarcasm, there's no other side of that story. Highest possible recommendation.
okay. All right. Well, I mean, y'all heard it from him first. I'm just gonna use this time to talk about Aubrey Plaza. Okay. So, I yield the floor.
I yield
So,
the floor to the gentleman from Florida.
yeah, exactly. So, her in Agatha
Mhm.
was, again, this is a show that we actually really. I don't even know if we talked much about it. That I really enjoyed
It was great.
immensely, and she is just absolutely amazing in it. And so it's really not a surprise that she was good in this and pretty much
She's
everything
better
else that
in
she
Legion.
does. Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And she's amazing in Agatha. So yeah, okay. So Agatha for you, like, cause again, we didn't really talk about it. Like, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was very good. Like, it was the best Agatha Harkness show that you could possibly have made.
I wouldn't even give it that caveat. It was great for anything. It was one like that and Loki, which I
Mm,
never thought I would like either. Like they get me with the stuff I don't think I'm gonna like, and then everything that I think I'm gonna like is meh at best. Agatha
mm,
was amazing, and
yeah.
I love the idea that it's now like instead of doing a season one, WandaVision 2, 3, that it's like
Mhm,
the arc through WandaVision, Agatha, and I guess now Vision Quest is the idea. I like that they're putting it together that way. So that's like the part, even though they mismanaged Wanda in the movies.
mhm,
Although I do like the Doctor Strange movie more than many people, um,
mhm.
like they did the TV right for them.
Okay. Yeah. I thought Agatha was great. To be honest with you. Yeah. I also, Catherine Hahn as well. Like, put putting the two of them together in the same movie was not, or a shame TV show was. I wasn't against that in any way, shape, or form. Catherine Hahn's from Ohio. I just
I
found
did
that
not
out.
know
Yeah, Cleveland, but we'll still claim her.
that's
But
still
yeah,
Ohio.
yeah, it's still Ohio, vaguely. All right, so that's a good pause. All right, let's get to pause part two, y'all. This is also from YouTube. All right, so if you're on YouTube, we're going to talk about Charles a little bit here. Charles Xavier, meaning, as he's got a lot of daddy issues, and it's a weird thing here. So we're going to primarily look at him with his relationships, like over the course of time, and we're reading the comic book. So if you're like watching this and you're a modern comic book reader, be like, oh no, Charles is dating, freaking Catherine Hahn right now in the comic books or whatever. I would know because I'm not reading the comic books currently.
He's
You know, but his
persona. He's persona non grata in the
is
comic
he missing in action again?
because
Okay,
he
so
sold out the mutants for like he sold out all the mutants for the robot people, whatever their name is, and
oh
so
Jesus.
like that led to the downfall of Krakoa, and they're out like they've given up on his dream, but they're doing usual mutant shit.
Okay. So if we go in a chronological order, there's Gabriella Holler that he met in his younger days in Israel. Or was he in Israel during the
Uh,
war? I'm just gonna
I
come
can't
up.
remember if they actually said that. Like it was totally
Yeah,
not World
yeah,
War II, totally not Nazis, but whatever.
yeah, yeah. And so that's one, and he winds up having a child with her, which we're gonna talk about David and lose him here momentarily or whatever. And then if you had to move next, it would be with Moira McTaggart before we knew she
You,
was a mutant and
you left
having
off.
thousands of lives.
You left off
Who did I leave?
Amelia Vogt, the
Oh
teleporter
my
that was the
God, that's
acolyte.
right. That's right. I totally forgot. But she'd be after Lalandra, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd
Well,
be after
no,
her.
she was with him before he created the X-Men, and then she wasn't with how he was trying to put that together,
Oh, okay.
if I remember. So she would have been between Holler and Moria. And actually in the books that are coming out now, they
Mhm.
got a new bitch he's hooked up with,
Yeah,
who
okay.
also
All
is
right.
crazy.
That's shocking. Um, he's like some
And
complicated.
oh, it's funny though, because she was like, yeah, Charles, I'm pregnant. He's like, bitch, you ain't got no baby. Yeah, so like straight up, that actually happened. Go read the new stuff. Like,
Oh, good grief.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, good grief. So then there's Lilandra, his space boo thing. That's been going on went on for a very long time. He almost married her. See X-Men 97 cartoon and in the comic books as well. And then there was this weird thing with Jean where during the Onslaught saga, it was kind of sort of revealed that maybe he had feelings for her, and that was really weird and awkward.
I'm not
So
sure
yeah,
there's like a panel in the 60s where he talks about like how he can't let his feelings be known or whatever. Yeah, but that's, yeah.
yeah, it's creeps. All right, so if you're on YouTube, the Venn diagram. Okay, so there's two separate things. Charles got bitches. That's fair, right? Like over the course of time, he's six.
Charles pulls. He
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm
pulls.
saying. Yeah, Charles got bitches. Well, that's fine. We can talk about that. But Charles is awkward as fuck. Okay. And so in the middle of that Venn diagram of him being awkward as fuck, he's got his bitches. He's a noted cock blocker. We've seen that over time. Like freaking Gene and Madeline or
Mm,
Gene, sorry, Scott and Madeline on their honeymoon. He interrupted that. He cannot give up any power or control when he's back in. When he's in
mhm,
charge, he's in charge. Absolutely, with Gene, definitely.
mm.
DFAC should be on absolute speed dial with Charles Xavier, sir. Absolutely. They should be calling the Department of Children and Families every single time because he puts little kids in danger. Massive savior complex and very questionable decisions. So that's our guy, man. That's Charles Xavier, man. That's where that Venn diagram overlaps.
Yeah,
It's Charles.
with Gabriel Holler, she was his patient because she was like
Yeah.
in some catatonic state. He
Mm.
brought her out of it, and then they smashed. Like you're not supposed to do that.
Fuck your hipper girl. Like, he didn't care. He didn't care. Charles got problems, man. Like the further he is away from the books, the better. We've talked about this a
Yes,
thousand times. The team
yes.
grows and does so much better when he's not around, but as soon as he gets back, everything gets
Yeah,
absolutely
like
ridiculous.
one of Big Hutch's best lines ever is in the pantheon of Spider-Man villains. He ranked Mary Jane Watson. So if you put the pantheon of X-Men villains, put Charles
Charles is,
Xavier in there too. So
yeah, Magneto is two. Right.
well, Magneto's their boy now.
Yeah, exactly. All right. All right. So, all right, let's get back to these books. All right. So, here's Legion's plan, y'all. And it's going to get explained a lot in a very Scooby Doo like fashion once we get to the actual book that we're going to talk about. But basically, and Charles gets this when he comes to Charles in a dream or on that. No, it's in a dream, and he comes to him like as Magneto, and they talk about their history together, and eventually he's just like, if I was never around as Magneto, your dream could have come true, and we would have escaped all the death and the fighting and all of these types of things. And then eventually, when Charles peeps it, he kind of like, hey, what are you doing? When he finally gets awakened from that dream from Beast or whatever, it's a panic mode at that particular point, because he's like, yeah, there's something going on with my son. Now you claim it, but there's something going on with my son, and that's going to lead us into this bit. And so at the end of X Factor 109, when he leaves, Mystique and Freedom Force, and that's the new X Factor at that time, the one led by Havoc or whatever, he's going to teleport himself away from somewhere, and nobody really knows where he's going. And then that's where we're going to pick up. Does any of this stuff sound vaguely familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, again, long-term booking here, and it really feels,
because you showed it was like 25 books different. Then it's like 40 issues after that.
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, they are really kind of getting themselves into this thing. And then I think a little bit different than maybe modern comics too, is that, like, we know we're going to, I mean, spoiler alert for a book that's 31 years old, or 41, I don't even know, 31 years old. Like, the death of Xavier is coming, and they plotted this out. Like, it was very well planned out ahead of time, even to the part where it's going to get to the Age of Apocalypse once they kill Xavier. And I don't think that we see a lot of that in modern comics now. It's more like, hey, this is a really good idea, but we don't know how to end it. Like, it's a good start, but we have no idea how we're going to finish it. And you can even take that back to Krakoa, because, again, great idea at the start, but I don't think they really had any idea how they were going to get out of it.
Because they don't have long-term creative teams at like the writer artist team. They don't seem like they have that as much anymore. And there's not like a executive producer or editor in chief that seems to drive it either. Yeah. So you get like stretches, but like continuity, they threw that away a long time ago.
For sure. All right. So here we go. Legion Quest Part 1, y'all, released November 1st, 1994. Scott Lobdell and Mark Waid, which is interesting, co-wrote the book. Roger Cruz doing his best.
Can we say, not Mark Waid, I was thinking Bagley. Is that, I was going to say friend of the podcast? Or,
yeah, exactly.
Can we trot?
Yes,
can we
sure.
on him?
But, we trot him out there. Yeah, Roger Cruz doing his best Jim Lee here. And then Tim Johnson on inks.
Look, they don't put the credits to like 6 pages in. I was like, Jim Lee draw this? No.
no.
They got another Jim Lee clone.
Yeah, he was doing his best Jim Lee, Will Spatasio freaking thing here. Joey Mad on the cover here. Decent cover. Kind of explains what's actually going to happen into the book or whatever. You had mentioned it before. This is after the Muir Island saga, the original X Factor team, which is the original X-Men team, come back into the fold. And then we do get the blue gold split where, again, we talked about this. We read those X-Men 91 books on the blue gold split or whatever. Those books were, they have their problems, but they were fine enough. I was listening to one of the older podcasts we have when they did the blue gold split maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. And that was some awful shit.
That wasn't it.
Yeah,
that don't work.
Yeah, if you want to go, to the archives, it's in there, and we ripped it to absolute shreds, and we probably were too nice to it because it was absolute garbage. But so, what are you doing, November '94, man?
I guess I done graduated. I was in grad school.
Okay. Yeah, I'm working. I just started that job in August. Struggling probably mightily at that particular time. But yeah, definitely not reading comics. Just really trying to survive the first year of teaching. Yeah, that was a lot back then. And I think I told you, like, when I first moved down there, I had a comic book store within walking distance. Mm-hmm. And then once you wind up giving me, which is going to come up here very soon, once you wind up giving me Age of Apocalypse, which would have been like for Christmas of '94, like I was right back into the game like 100%. I wish I could remember the name of that place, but yeah, it was within walking distance of where I live, so I spent a lot of hours in there. All right, so here we go. The book tells the story backwards, so if you're following along, whether on Marvel Unlimited or whatever, you're gonna see like this big splash page of Storm with this confrontation against Legion, but we're gonna tell it backwards and then forwards the way that the book goes. And so, ironically, we're back in Israel. And the Israelis and the Palestinians are teaming up. That's interesting. And there's a threat of nukes. Just saying, maybe sometimes these comic books are a little prescient, whatever. And so the X-Men, it's just the Gold Team shows up, led by Storm. Gold Team sucks.
And I think I was, so when I opened this and it started in the middle, I was like, what did I miss? And so then I was like, oh, I bet to do the flashback thing. So I was like that. But then I like look back at the like the titles, and I was like trying to figure out like how did we get here? So I think the one thing that happened was Archangel and Psylocke smashed. So
Yes.
we get Archangel's not on the Gold Team right now, but Psylocke is. But other than that, we got like the original Gold Team plus Bishop and Jericho Mullet. Bishop is best Bishop. So we got that version, and then Cyclops or Psylocke is in the Archangel slot. So yeah.
Yeah. They got no muscle, like at all.
Oh, is Colossus isn't in this either? Is he?
No.
He's not dead, is he? Did they do the?
No, he had just, remember in the Muir Island saga, after the Siege Perilous or whatever, he had become Peter Jacobson or whatever. Yeah. And then Xavier had to bring him back and lost that version of his life. But I think he's just not fully, engulfed in the team.
And then like closer to like at a certain point, actually, I think I saw the Executioner was on here, and I think he like, doesn't he like hurts? He gives Colossus brain damage, takes him off the team, and I think that might lead to Colossus hooking up with Magneto. That leads to Onslaught. But no, I can't remember if that's already happened. I don't know.
Well, he'll show back up here because he's definitely a big part of Age of Apocalypse. So
yeah,
what's that? Kitty Pryde and whatever that book is. We'll talk about
Speaking of pedophilia.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so the X-Men show up and they're like, well, hey, things are falling apart. This is what the X-Men do. He's erected this big black dome like out in the desert or whatever, and they brought the X-Men, Gabriella has brought the X-Men, to kind of try to save her son. She's not in a situation of like, hey, you got to take him out. We're like, we just need to get to him, essentially reason with him to be able to save him. And they're like, oh, okay.
And why it got to be a black dome?
Well, there. Oh, sir. You'll find out here very quickly here. I got things to say. So yeah. So she calls them in. They help explain the situation. Things are dire, to say the least. And they're trying to figure out what they're going to do to try to save David. All right. So when we flash forward or whatever, or we flash forward to go backwards again, Storm is already in the bubble, and Legion's going to Scooby-Doo explain the plot essentially to her. And it's basically he's determined in his mind that, hey, if I can go back in time, or if you could go back in time to a very terrible moment and change that moment, you would do it. And so instead of explaining that to her, he literally takes her back in time to when, like, this is her parents' the plane crashed or whatever, and she winds up becoming an orphan, and takes her back to that moment and allows her to relive it and not be able to fix it, and it still goes down the way that it happened, in his history, and made Storm relive that memory, and that did not necessarily go well for Storm. But now she kind of has an idea of what's going to happen. But this is actually after they get into the dome, which we're going to go back to here in a second. So you remember anything about this particular moment?
Only from rereading it on Monday.
Okay. What about the design of Storm? Like, this is a kind of the updated classic version here.
Yeah, the white, like the white uniform, this is a crossover, in my opinion, from the original X-Men animated series, because there was like kind of like Moon Knight, black and white's hard to pull off sometimes in the comics, and
Mm,
like Moon Knight, there's a debate of, do you have a black costume or white costume, like what is it?
mhm.
So that was her. So like to put her in the overt white costume, like this is pretty much the X-Men the animated series designed for her. So yeah,
Right.
and
Yeah.
she's untouchable in modern comics, and so she is their powerhouse. Like
Mhm.
she is basically all, like it could be Jean too, but Jean seems like she's always like got some kind of, and Bobby's a Omega level mutant, but like it's like
Mhm.
neither of them are, they're I guess good at one thing, but like if they just need raw power, it's Storm. So like obviously putting like Storm, hopefully you can go solve this because we are the gold team and there's not much after you. Kind of where they are.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. Hit it harder is definitely not anything that they
Pretty
got on
much.
this team.
Can
Yeah.
you make it cold? Like he has fire powers, so
Yeah.
Iceman's out. He has mental powers, so Jean's out. And
Yeah.
then what?
Yeah, and then
Bishop.
we get, now you said that, like, because this is the time where they were talking about Bobby being an Omega level mutant and his powers are only held back because he's a goof or maybe gay, and it's like, so you have three Omega level mutants on this team. Okay, they
Yeah.
get their asses handed to them, like
Yeah, because
completely.
the theory is like the gold team was like the power because they had like the experienced and powerful X-Men, and the blue team was all like the renegades, and they were like, "Oh, Scott, you got to babysit these guys," and Storm has all the power, but
Yeah.
like they have, other than Big Hutch, they have like nobody's favorite character on their team. So
Exactly. But Storm's the clear leader
yeah,
here. Like,
yeah,
I think that's something that, like, I mean, they definitely gave her that position, and it's shown and how it's actually written into this particular book. So, I mean, Storm comes off very strong here, and I think that's, probably a good thing moving forward. But all right. So Benjamin Bishop Bannister here. All right. So once they got there, Bishop found out that his powers didn't work. Like, he can't siphon like the energy from Legion. He can't do it. And so that's not a way for him to actually be able to attack him or anything like that. Over the course of telling the story back and forth, they do find out that, he was able to siphon some of that energy or whatever. And then, of course, Bishop gets to go in there and get knocked the fuck out first because, he's Benjamin Bannister, man. You got to sacrifice, for the particular team. Okay, so again, this is so funny. There's 500 freaking Brothers Comics podcasts out there. I couldn't tell you when we talked about Bishop, but at some point I know we did, probably multiple times. Like, and off the top of my head, we talked about him in Civil War, where he was a whole sellout ass
yes.
cop, um, and who got his ass kicked repeatedly. We talked about him always being on the wrong side of history. If there's a bad side, he is going to choose it. This version, because they hadn't totally him up yet, is the best version. Mullet,
I
Jerry curl, whatever you want to call it. This is
I
by
drafted
far
him
the
on
best version.
my Secret Wars team, if you'll
Hmm.
recall.
Yes, that's right.
But it was
Yeah,
really only as a token.
yeah, he's he's he's. It's just not a great character. They
No.
tried to
But
redeem him
what
a little bit in '97. They did. They redeemed him a little bit, but he's
but he
always,
was he was a definite C player in terms of plot and dialogue.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the like kind of the funnier thing is like he was the first adversary of the so-called powerful, supposedly powerful gold team. Like him and his two boys were like the first
Okay.
thing they had to deal with. Like he was cast as a threat to the entire team,
Mhm.
and he's like one of those guys. Like he was cast stronger when he was a heel, but when he made his babyface turn, then he had to take. Went right to the mid card.
We're looking at you, Virgil. All right.
Pretty
So,
much.
um, yeah, their plan once they're in is to attack him, obviously, and then he's so powerful or whatever, they're going to wind up, you know, getting themselves actually absolutely teleported away from there too. And the only way that they're able to, you know, survive this is going to, the only person to survive is Jean. But you know, you get it in the book, the totality of my psychokinetic
Yep.
powers or whatever. Like it makes its appearance here, and I was
Yep.
like, wait, who wrote this? But it wasn't Claremont. It's Lobdell, who was just doing great value Claremont at this point. And you know, it it's a real good be looking ahead. It's actually a pretty good setup for actually what is going to happen. So I'm really not kind of shitting on this. It's actually a good point, or a good like kind of starting point to get them to where they're going to go and the story that they're trying to tell. So like I feels like I'm shitting on it a little bit, but I was like, oh okay, well that was at least an interesting way of doing it, and what it leads to. But you know, again, by them going into the past or whatever to try to stop him from doing what he's going to do, I always thought to be kind of interesting. You know, any
Yeah.
thoughts on that one?
No, I mean, I was tempted to sort of read forward to like put this in perspective, but I was like, nah, let's just do it in real time. So I mean, yeah, it's you know, we're in the era where it actually takes some time to read a book.
Yes.
It's got a lot of callbacks of history. We're still in the era where continuity matters. So
Mhm.
um, it is amazing that they've rolled out another Jim Lee clone, although you can see it crack a few times across the, you know,
Mhm.
some of the pages. But no, I mean it's good. Like I I'm really interested to see like when we get into Age of Apocalypse if it holds up, because
Mhm.
I I think we know now, like, because the designs of some of the characters have been mocked enough because of their 90s ness. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know the visuals, but like it did seem huge at the time. So
Mhm.
curious to see how that gets when we get there. As that's kind of where I'm at. So
My initial thought, I was like, all right, we're going to do this. My initial thought, I was like, man, Age of Apocalypse is bomb. Now, I haven't read it in probably 20 plus years,
hmm
but
I,
my initial thought, we'll go back here,
I'm
whatever.
afraid. I'm a little
Yeah.
afraid.
I was, I was so excited to figure out this puzzle. So, again, you gave me like the toy that was already built, and then I had to go find all the parts to, you know, to figure this out and how I got to this end point. Because I'm like, oh shit, you know, Age of Apocalypse, the alpha version of the book, the chrome cover color,
hmm
you know,
hmm
over the top. I was like, oh okay, what, Xavier's dead? Like I remember, you know, going to comic book stores at the time, whatever, and you know, like there was like literal funerals or whatever for Xavier dying or whatever, and reading that in Wizard. Like I remember that like so vividly. Like this was a huge X event at the time, like a very very, and again I'm on the back end of it. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going back, but I remember all of that, and you know, and people being, you know, so excited. And then at some point up it will come up with, you know, on Wolverine and the X-Men teased us horribly with, you know, that final panel or the final cartoon version of that on their freaking thing about we were supposed to get this on in
Yeah.
cartoon version and we never got it. So but yeah, so
Yeah,
Storm.
and that was earned, and that would have worked. We got a bootleg Age of Apocalypse in the original run.
Oh
The
Lord, man.
apocalypse they're doing in '97 is not, I think, what anyone really wants to see. So, and
No.
obviously, the apocalypse movie they made was nothing that anyone wanted to see. So, like,
No.
they actually that Wolverine X Men show, which to me is like a sequel to the X Men Last Stand. It gets
Mm,
good and there's good parts of it, but I was anti that, the premise of that
yeah.
show. But
Yeah.
they actually earned the Age of Apocalypse storyline. I was hyped for that, but we can't
Yeah.
have nice things. So
We cannot have nice things. Yeah. It was, yeah, Kitty Pryde's the X-Men standing on the
that
Earth
was very
situation.
much the X
Just,
Men standing on the earth.
yeah, sitting around waiting. All right. So they get pulled away in a temporal situation with Legion. Guess who's late to the party? We should have added that to his Venn diagram too. Always late. Xavier, late. Jean is completely wiped out. She was able to tether herself to the ground and, you know, not get pulled into that temporal time travel. She calls out to Xavier. He's like, "Wait, I can barely feel you. You see, pedo." So, yeah, and then she's just trying to tell him, it's like, yeah, it was Legion. There's a problem, and then she passes out. So it, it's like they really set this up, and I just kind of noticing what you said. Like, yeah, this was not a not easy read, but it
Mhm.
wasn't like, oh, I flipped through this book in 5 minutes. You had to like really kind of dig into it to see what was actually happening, and there was a lot to read and to look at all at the same time. So, all right, and then we're almost done, y'all. And we get to the Shi'ar, another one of Charles's boos. So here's the thing about the Shi'ar. They are literal just plot like movers. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not around. Nobody references them other than the technology. Like other times they're just like, oh yeah, hey, remember that time we was hanging out with Rick and Alondra and playing spades and shit? No, it never happens. It just doesn't. They never reference them outside of the technology until there's a global or freaking universe defining event that is going to destroy the entire universe.
Yeah.
So we get this moment, Gladiator gets knocked the fuck out, and then it's like, what's it, Jafar or Jar or whatever his
I
name
don't
is,
know
this
who
little
this
dude.
character is.
What?
But
Really? He's in the M Crown Crystal saga, right?
well, I don't know who he is.
Oh, okay.
I don't know
I don't know
Joff.
his name. Yeah.
But I think here's now like they used. I think they've. I don't know how many times it's happened, but I know we've seen it enough. Like they use the Gladiator got knocked out by something. It's getting real. But like he's been knocked out so many times now. Like it's like, well, okay,
Yeah, maybe he's
is
not as
something really
powerful.
happening, or is he just suck? So
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah. Oh well. Essentially, he is the guarder of the Mcron crystal, and he comes after he knocks out Gladiator, and he's like, "Hey, man, shit is happening big time. With the crystal, and something bad is coming." And that's basically the warning that he gives. But again, it's a good postscript to the book. And again, if you're new to I don't know, 90s comics or whatever, you know, this is when books were coming out, like essentially an X book was coming out every 2 weeks. So you
mhm.
get like Uncanny like 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later you'd get the X-Men book. And so when they tell you like, oh, to be continued in X-Men 41, I mean, you really didn't have a long time to wait for that. It felt like it, waiting for the books to be, delivered or distributed, but like it was, oh, okay, we're going to come to this particular point. And
And they
again,
actually tell you where the next part is, as opposed to just telling you the other 10 books that come out this month. And good luck.
yeah.
I'm looking at you, Modern Comics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was just about to say a version of that is just like, yeah, like this is the book, this is the main line of story. We don't have all the ancillary stories that are
Yeah.
hanging off to the side that you don't really care about. This is the main line story. We're going to read this story and it's going to go all the way through. It has a start, a middle, and an end, and then it leads into the next bit. And over time, it racked our brains. We're like, when did that change? And like, I don't know off the top of my head, but like there comes a period of time like kind of after Onslaught, and that's kind of gets into that point where I'm like, all right, well, I'm a little bit pulling away from the comics a little bit, but I know like in that particular time frame, it was still like a steady like, hey, this is the books, we're gonna have the start of this thing, the end of this thing. But then sometime after Onslaught, like I think things started to get like, hey, you know what? If we sold all these freaking third party books too, we could still try to make a little bit of money, and it
Yeah.
takes away from the main storyline and weakens everything.
I kind of remember like the Grant Morrison era. That's kind of where I got out. But I
Mm-hmm.
remember even at that time, like it was still there, the cross book continuity was there, but the continuity within a book was still there. So there were too many X-Men titles, but they were all doing their own thing. Where it
Mm-hmm.
is now is like they're all sort of bleed in and out of each other, so you can read them, but you don't have to. But it's like if when they do a sort of crossover, it's really hard to follow. And they
Right.
don't. It's not like they just like tag team in and out. It's like it goes here, then there, and then over there. It's like you get in a stretch of like you get on Marvel Unlimited and you start reading the book, and it's like you get 3 or 4 issues in. It's like, okay, now there's a 7-parter scattered to the winds. Like, what do I do? And half the time, it's like I just pick up on the other side and hope it works out. Like, it's
Right.
a hassle.
Yeah, it's something. So, I mean, so this book as a starter for this event, only 4 parts, which is perfect. It gives you, kind of the like, okay, so this is you get the villain's not necessarily his origin story, but you understand what his point is,
Yeah.
which is very much, this this ain't the Boar Horseman. Well, I know I don't I don't understand what Moxley's fighting about, but I do understand what David Haller is actually trying to do here. And so you get interested in not figuring out how he's going to get from point A to point B, and that's intriguing. Like, and
Yeah.
it's told in a very tight, concise story that moved along at a perfect pace. Like, I was like, this is like a good. You can't call this a modern comic because it's freaking 30 some odd years old,
Yeah.
but this is a very good comic book. Like,
And
I have
and it's
no real
also
complaint.
not like stuff's going on, and then 10 issues from now we'll tell you what's going on.
Right? Yeah. Like, I mean, they are they. This is definitely well plotted out, and they call it. If you're calling it Legion Quest for those 4 issues, which probably only took a month because the books were coming out or whatever, and then 4 months of Age of Apocalypse, which was what that was, this had to be plotted out for close to, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months that they knew exactly where they were going. That's
Yeah.
definitely not happening now.
Well, and I don't know who's drawing the X-Men this time, but I was starting to think like,
Hubert.
do they have the like is the core art team already working on the Age of Apocalypse books?
Mm-hmm.
And so did they like,
Because yeah, is this where Joey Mad becomes a superstar? Like this, because he does the primary.
he
Was
was
it
doing
Astonishing X
wasn't
Men?
he doing Generation X prior? No, that was Greg Capullo.
Yeah. No, I think this is where Joey Mad becomes like a superstar. Like
Maybe.
he
Yeah.
does like Age of Apocalypse, the main X Men book, and then he comes on as the full time artist, I believe, on the Uncanny book until what 350. I
Yeah.
think that's when he dips out, to create Battle Chasers. I think we're still waiting on that.
We're still
Issue,
waiting on number
still
2.
waiting on issue 3. It's only been 35 years, man.
It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Good Lord. Kevin Smith's writing it. So yeah, so that's where it is, man. Like, I mean, I have literally no complaints about this book. Even if we didn't do the brief explanation up to this particular point, you could pick up this book and figure it out.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
the characterization of all the cast is not so very like you when you pick up a book, you understand Storm, you understand Iceman, you understand Jean.
Right.
And like they've changed some of the characters to, like Cyclops is the one that's hard to follow that comes to mind. Like you can't like if you pick up a modern book, you're like, what is Cyclops
Right.
doing? Um
Yeah.
but yeah, no, that's the point like the characterization this is still the era where the characterization is so strong like if you missed out some of the story, you can still understand what's going on right now.
Right. Okay.
But like if you
All
were
right. So
trying to read about Beast or even Iceman, Cyclops, the folks right now, or Archangel was the one like who is this guy? Like that might be the one, but
okay.
whatever.
All right. So this is Legion Quest Part 1. This is like the damn Chappelle Show podcast where we did like the skits and then we waited like 8 years and then we came back to it with Hodge. Like, we're not going to do that this time. So we're going to come back with Part 2, which is Legion Quest Part 2, which if you're on the read, I believe that's X-Men 41
Yep, 40
is
I thought it
Part 2. 40. Okay, yeah, so it's X-Men 40, which is Part 2. So we'll be back within a relative decent period of time to kind of go through these books. And then, I mean, again, I'm really excited to get to Age of Apocalypse because I haven't read it. And
yeah.
we probably, with Marvel Unlimited now, probably going to have to dip into the reboot of Age of Apocalypse because I did hear they did another one within the last,
Well,
call it
if we can
3 to
find
5
it.
years.
If we can find it on
Yeah,
Marvel.
well, yes. You know what?
We're looking at you, Marvel Unlimited.
We are very much looking at you, Marvel Unlimited, because what in the hell? Y'all put all your money into something else. So that's it. All right. So real quick before we get to the hour mark here, but it might be shorter than that based on the answer to this question. Did you watch Ironheart last night? This will be for you, Chris.
No, no, I was thinking
Okay.
I was considering it. I just didn't have the time. I thought
Okay.
this might be asked. I will, but I haven't. I
Okay.
heard it's
All right. So,
good, but it's also being review bombed because there's
yes.
colored
Yeah.
people in it.
Yes. There's the blacks again. Hey, to be honest with you, hold it. I'm counting my whites. One with a speaking role. One, and it's in episode one
Hmm.
with a speaking role. Yeah, and it's the dean from Community.
Oh, of
You know,
course,
because he's in that now. Yeah, yeah,
somebody in a
he's in
position
that
of
now.
power.
The Community and MCU
Yeah,
crossover is pretty much almost everybody at
you
this
know,
point.
I was thinking about it like if they had made instead of trying to do Black Panther without Black Panther, if they had instead like just made it a Shuri and Ironheart like team up and got
Mhm,
that sort of that same kind of Captain America,
mhm,
although Black Panther in this case, and Iron Man
mhm.
like competitive like friends, frenemy. That like
Yeah,
that could have been a fun story of them too, but they
right.
like for whatever reason, Shuri, who was like in the movies 6 months older than her, was
Yeah,
like her grandmother in terms of wisdom. But
yeah.
like, I wish they had like instead of made it. I think they missed the opportunity to like, okay, this is what they were in the books, but here's where we are now. Why don't we just make a buddy movie about these two and just go from there?
And
I think I'd rather see that than Shuri pretending to be Black Panther.
I just think they were just so hampered by the
Yeah,
idea of
yeah,
him passing away and not wanting to move past it. I mean, I think they again, you probably made the best movie you could under the given set of circumstances, you know. And again, all that's going to get reset here, you know. And I'm
yeah.
again, since we haven't talked about this much or whatever, I'm going to use the last 3 minutes and whatever seconds here. So we're clearly moving towards obviously Secret Wars. It's obviously going to be the Secret Wars that we reviewed when we reviewed all of them except Secret Wars 2. It's obviously going to be Secret Wars 3. You know, I mean, if you saw the end of Thunderbolts, you know, with the Fantastic Four ship coming, you know, into whatever Earth that is that they're particularly on, like, I mean, it's almost a direct lift at this particular point. You know,
Mhm.
they already talked about convergences in the end of Doctor Strange 2. You know, I'm like, it's all there. Like, it literally is Doom, obviously being Robert Downey Jr. You know, that's going to be, you know, probably more than likely the Iron Man, Tony Stark Doom, you know, that we saw in the Marvel Legacy books or whatever. Like, I mean, this is all there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's confusing to say the least, and it going to be, but at least it's different. Like, honestly, like that's the only part that I have like a little bit of excitement for because it's actually going to be something different. They're trying to do something different. Now in the comic books when they do different, everybody revolts. How do you think they're going to act with this version of different?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they gotta the fact of the multiverse to me has undermined every story they've told. So I'm
Mm,
hoping they undo the multiverse. I hope we get the big, the big movie. Like, you know, it's unwatchable in my opinion, but the fun part of Wolverine and Deadpool was just the
mm,
cameos and everybody coming together. So we're gonna get that kind of nostalgia and hopefully do away with the fact that we can undo every story by just flipping to a new universe and just
yeah.
kind of I don't know, maybe this time like clear the plate for something that can stand on its own. Like I think the
Mm,
flaw when they went from Endgame was like they filled in the gaps with the B-list characters. They were trying to pad the roster and set up the next generation stories, but none of
mm.
that was strong enough. So if we can like clear the plate of all that and like maybe come out with a Fantastic Four, maybe one or two, but obviously into the X-Men, set the stage. I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's all there. Again, the threading of that needle is going to be very, very interesting, and it has to be accurate. And that's the thing. You know, take out the Fantastic Four corny, take out that part. But you're going to have to try. And again, we know the story that they're trying to tell here. Like, I mean, as soon as they announced Secret Wars and as soon as they announced freaking him as Doom, I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're doing now. So how are you going to get us to that point without making it ridiculous? You know, and I'm at least if they could pull this off, and that's a big ass if, this would be a bigger pull off than freaking Avengers and Endgame and all of that, because it's a much more complicated story. Because you are literally going from something that is, I mean, a literal comic book about this whole particular event. And you have most of the primary characters involved once you got the Fantastic Four in it. And again, I don't think we're getting any X-Men in this either. Like, I mean, maybe off to the side and the characters that are, you know, from the other universes or whatever for a roll call. But I don't think we're going to get the new X-Men out of this. I think that's a completely different thing. So I'm excited. I haven't bought my tickets yet for it because I don't think they're on sale yet. Although, actually, it's a month from today, so maybe they actually are on sale. But yeah, are you going to go see Superman? No. Why not?
Why not? I've already seen it. I've seen a James Gunn movie. I know what this is going to be. It's going to be another found family, crass humor, yuckity yuck. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it when it's on one of the streaming services, but I don't need to go see that. Plus, it's DC. Fuck a DC.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, well, and fuck Hulk Hogan, by the way, because we haven't said that today.
Yeah.
We wish you really were on your deathbed. All right. Anyway. All right. So we're gonna wrap up. As the producer of this podcast, you'll be able to find this podcast on, let's see, SoundCloud, Stitcher's gone, iTunes, Podbean.
Sound like y'all gonna have to look for it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's easier to just watch it on YouTube. Honestly, side brother topic and producing on camera here. It's like, oh well, you know, yeah. When you would ask, like, well, just do it for YouTube or whatever, like that's fine. But you know what? Like, data would tell me old people don't watch YouTube videos.
No,
they'll listen to podcasts.
YouTube's hard to watch.
It is for that too. Yeah, but
it's also put it on the background.
Yeah. But am I watching it? I find myself listening to YouTube videos. You know, not a video part, but just the audio of somebody playing something. But like old people don't really. Yeah, so you can still get the podcast version if you want to flip over and be like, oh, there's those two handsome fellows. Yeah, then that's that. But yeah, we're good. All right, so we'll be able to find it. We'll be back for Legion Quest Part 2 sooner than you think. And I'm going to sign off. Brother Beavis, go ahead and sign off.
I will sign off, but I will say you said Part 2 about 5 times without saying Electric Boogaloo, and I think that's
god damn it. See, I'm out. I got to get back into the groove, y'all. It's going to take me a little bit. We'll see. It won't take me 500 episodes though. All right, we'll see you on the other side, everybody. Peace.